Hey everybody, my name's Falyn Owens and I'm a wildlife biologist. Today I want to dispel some myths about rabies. It's a pretty scary disease and it can evoke a lot of fear, and there's a lot of pop culture references out there that sometimes have facts and sometimes convey some fictions. So let's go over some of these videos and sort of dispel some myths about this pretty scary disease. First off, Cujo is chasing after a rabbit, and you might wonder, could Cujo actually get rabies from a rabbit? I can say that rabies is very rare in small rodents and lagomorphs, which is the technical term for rabbits. The bats, however, are a different story. Bats are one of our rabies vector species in North Carolina, and they can carry rabies, although the number of bats or the proportion of bats that actually have rabies is very, very tiny. I noticed that when Cujo got bitten by the bat, he yelped and he, backed up, and it was kind of this really painful ordeal. And that's actually not necessarily the case with rabies bites. The thing about bats is that they have really, really itty bitty tiny teeth, like really tiny. So if a bat bites you, you might not even feel it. You might not even bleed. Which is why when somebody talks about an exposure to bats, that could even be a bat landing on you, even if you don't think it bit you. Obviously, a pet that's running around free without any supervision could come in contact with a wild animal that might potentially have rabies. So I would say a really good way of preventing a situation like this would be to keep your pet on a leash. And in North Carolina, it's a legal requirement that dogs and cats and ferrets have to be vaccinated for rabies. And that's because one of the major ways that human beings used to get exposed to rabies was from animals like dogs and cats. So by all means, in terms of prevention or making sure this doesn't happen to you or your pet, absolutely make sure that you get your pets vaccinated for rabies. And if you think your pet has come in contact with an animal that might have had rabies, definitely go to your veterinarian and get a booster shot. That's really, really important, and that can make sure that none of this scary Cujo stuff happens to you.
He's got it all right, Mr. Finch.
Stay inside, son. Keep him in there, Cal.
Take him, Mr. Finch.
Oh, no, Mr. Tate. He can't shoot.
Don't waste time, Hank.
For God's sake, Mr. Finch, he's got to be killed right away before he starts running. Look where he is. I can't shoot that well, and you know it.
I haven't shot a gun in years.
Well, I'd feel mighty comfortable if you did now.
Don't go near that dog, you understand? He's just as dangerous dead as alive.
Yes, sir.
So in this video, there was a dog that had rabies, and we're seeing sort of these cinematic, movie magic symptoms of rabies or signs of rabies in a dog. And when we think about wildlife that are our rabies vector species, especially raccoons, foxes, skunks, bats, these are all animals that are, for the most part, nocturnal. And I hear this all the time. People will come to me and say, Falyn, I saw a raccoon out during the day. It was in my trash can, or it was getting into the bird feeder. And I want to give you some good news, and that is that even a nocturnal animal that's out during the daytime doesn't necessarily have rabies. Just like human beings can wake up for a midnight snack or have to go to the bathroom, wild animals do that too. Sometimes they just have reasons to be out during the day. And so you don't necessarily have to be concerned just because a nocturnal animal is awake and active during the daytime. The signs of rabies are really going to be signs of brain damage, really odd behavior that look like something is wrong with its brain. But a raccoon going through your backyard because there's tasty birdseed on the ground, that's probably a very healthy raccoon. Don't pet it though. Don't pet raccoons.
Without being able to autopsy the raccoon, we have no way of knowing if it gave your dog rabies.
I am an animal control professional. Explain to Hank how you get rabies.
Raccoon bites in the most common way, followed by rat bites, and then raccoon scratches.
What? Oh, raccoon scratches moved up to third. Good for them. Nancy, I think I have rabies.
Dale, you're gonna be fine. All we have to do is get you to a doctor so they can give you a shot.
Let's say I don't get the shots. Is it possible to live a normal life infected with rabies?
No.
Let's talk about how people are exposed to rabies. So in the video, we had raccoon bites. That's actually correct, especially here in North Carolina. Raccoons are the #1 rabies vector species. Now, in the video, they say the #2 is rat bites. That is definitely not correct. Rodents, especially small rodents like rats and mice and squirrels, essentially are so small and so weak that if they get bitten by an animal that has rabies, they're not likely to survive that encounter. So we actually don't see any positives of rabies coming from our small rodents. Don't worry about getting rabies from a rat or a squirrel. The third one that they mention is scratches, raccoon scratches. It's technically possible for rabies to be transmitted by an animal scratch. The rabies virus lives in the saliva, so that's why bites are so serious, right? You know, an animal bites and then the saliva gets into the wound and that's how rabies gets into the body. So though technically it's possible for maybe, saliva to get into the scratch, it's not very likely. He mentions that, you have to have the animal for testing. And that's true. Something that people don't often really understand about rabies testing, when we test an animal for rabies, we have to use a chunk of the brain, and that actually has to go to the lab in order to figure out whether the animal had rabies or not. And in order to get a piece of brain tissue, we have to put the animal down. And also that brain tissue has to be in really good condition. So, when that animal gets put down by whatever means, if it didn't die from the disease, we have to make sure that the brain is intact. Kind of a unpleasant thing to think about, but really important when it comes to testing. I'll just talk about that last little bit. Can you live a normal life with rabies? The video was correct. No, you cannot. For better or for worse, the reason why rabies is so scary is because it is pretty much a 100% lethal disease. So once symptoms start, it is too late, which is why it's so incredibly important that if you might have been exposed to a rabid animal, you absolutely need to get the post-exposure vaccination. It's incredibly important because once you show signs of rabies, that's it. The prognosis is incredibly poor.
Ms. Palmer, your last tetanus shot was when you were bitten by a bat a few months ago?
Yes. Dwight here trapped it in a bag against my head.
Just doing my job.
It also says you were recently bitten by a raccoon?
And a rat. Separate occasions.
So, just to be safe, they are giving her the rabies vaccine.
Oh, God, rabies? Mm-hmm. I was in the hospital room with her. How contagious is that? Is that like an STD? Or?
No, you've got to be bitten by something.
This place is so cursed.
Actually, the doctor said it was lucky she came into the hospital because the only way to beat rabies is to start treatment before the symptoms set in. Lockjaw.
Kudos to Dwight. The factoid about the doctor saying that the only way to beat rabies is to get the vaccine first before symptoms start to appear, that is absolutely true, which is why if you think you've been exposed to rabies, you need to go to your doctor right away, take your pet to the veterinarian. It's really, really important to get that post-exposure vaccine if you have actually come in contact with rabies, because if you wait and you start to show symptoms, it's too late. So Meredith got bitten on several occasions by multiple animals. The rat bite, not so much to worry about. But raccoon and bat, basically, even if you have gotten the vaccine for rabies, if you've gotten bitten by a rabid animal and then you've gotten treated, if you get bitten again at a separate time by a rabid animal, you need to go get a booster. You have to get that booster every time. So take every exposure very seriously. Make sure you get treated. The good thing is that if you've already had the full vaccine, then If you go back again because you've had another exposure to rabies, you have to get fewer shots, which is good news for everybody.
Did you get the shot?
No, he said I didn't need a shot.
You got bit by a strange dog and you didn't get a rabies shot?
Why, you think I should have?
Oh.
Listen to these symptoms for rabies. Anxiety, irritability. I've got those. I'm irritable. I think I'm having trouble swallowing.
She's got rabies, just like my friend Bob Sacamano. Look at that, she's delirious. She's foaming at the mouth!
Is this gonna hurt?
Yes, very much.
Right off the bat, she's talking about symptoms of rabies in humans. Honestly, if you've been bitten by a strange dog, go to your doctor. Definitely, you are going to need a follow-up on that. Fortunately, if the dog can get taken into a veterinarian, it can be put in quarantine, and we will put the animal under observation. So a cat or a dog, or I guess a ferret, if it bites you, that pet goes under observation. And if it, over a certain period of time, doesn't come down with rabies, that means everybody's good. It doesn't have rabies and you don't have to get the vaccine. Now, if the pet or the animal does come up positive for rabies, you're going to have to get that vaccination. And that's going to make sure that you don't end up experiencing any symptoms of rabies, which is excellent because if you start showing signs of rabies, then it's too late. Always, always take these exposures very seriously and make sure you see a doctor, or if it's your pet, go to a veterinarian and follow up on that. So if you've never gotten the rabies vaccine before, if you've never been exposed to rabies, you've never had to get the shots before, for most people, it's going to be a series of 4 shots. And the doctor joked like, oh, it's going to hurt a lot. It actually hurts just about as much as any other vaccine that you get. Just your typical vaccine. It's just right here in your arm, just like in the video. And if you've actually been exposed to rabies before and you've had the vaccine before, you might only need 2 shots. So it could not even be 4 shots, depending. But maybe don't get exposed to rabies more than once. Thank you for watching. I hope you learned a little bit about this very serious disease and now feel a little bit more empowered to know what to do in case you might come across a potentially rabid animal. If you're curious to know more, I encourage you to go to the CDC website, cdc.gov.